Just moments ago, the unthinkable flashed across my screen. Whispers of U.S. military coercion that could swallow Canada whole and spit it out as America's 51st state by the end of 2026. Can you believe it? In a world where borders should mean something, where sovereignty isn't just a word in a dusty constitution, we're staring down the barrel of a geopolitical shotgun held by none other than Donald Trump himself. This isn't some dystopian novel. This is the raw, unfiltered reality, hitting Canada like a freight train. What if I told you that Canada's steel exports grinding to a halt isn't just a trade hiccup? It's a calculated strike in a larger war where Trump pulls the strings like a puppet master with a grudge? Picture this. Less than a minute ago, Canadian steel shipments to the U.S. froze solid, leaving construction sites from Michigan to Texas in chaos. Projects stalling, costs skyrocketing, deadlines evaporating into thin air. And why? Because months of ignored warnings about U.S. tariff enforcements and procurement rules finally boiled over. The Canadian Steel Producers Association has been from the people's perspective, this is a betrayal of the highest order. Everyday Canadians, mill workers in Hamilton, truckers at the border, families relying on those paychecks, are the ones paying the price for Trump's ego trip. Mark Carney, our Prime Minister, steps up as the voice of reason in this storm. He's the guy who knows finance inside out, having steered central banks through crises before. Under his watch, Canada's pushing back with calculated restraint, emphasizing treaties like the USMCA that his administration's sudden regulatory clarifications, no exemptions, no grace periods, are designed to cripple us, forcing Canadian producers to halt rather than bleed red ink. And the data backs it up. Every ton of steel now carries an extra $110 to $160 in costs, multiplying to billions in losses. Trump's miscalculation? Assuming U.S. mills like U.S. Steel or Cleveland Cliffs, running at 84% capacity, could ramp up overnight. They can't. And now steel futures are up 18%, construction ETFs are tanking, and shares of builders are down 11%. This isn't leadership, it's economic sabotage. How dare Trump play God with? He's scrambling emergency calls, petitioning for waivers, warning of project paralysis under the $1.2 trillion U.S. Infrastructure Act that's now choking on its own hypocrisy. Policies meant to boost domestic industry are stalling the projects they fund. Ironic, isn't it? Moody's preliminary analysis pegs prolonged disruption at shaving 0.4% off U.S. GDP growth in the next 2 quarters, tens of billions gone. Yet Trump doubles down, framing it as strength. Strength? It's chaos, pure and simple. And from a Canadian lens, we're the ones holding. No, it's necessity in the face of federal dithering that Trump's exploiting. Alberta's Premier Danielle Smith nails it. We've been damaged by pipelines not built. Northern Gateway, Keystone, Energy East. That's 2.5 million barrels a day lost, 55 billion in GDP yearly. So Alberta goes direct, securing a 1 million barrel a day corridor south, bypassing bottlenecks. Contracts signed, crews mobilized, hundreds of millions spent on land and pipes. This isn't rebellion. It's action when Ottawa's climate talks stall real progress. Trump hates this because it shifts power. Quotes from insiders. This is a new starting point grounded in good faith, as Carney hopes for reconciliation. Meanwhile, Trump's tariffs are the hammer, pressuring Canada into submission. Past events like the 2018 steel tariffs under Trump 1.0, they added 8,700 U.S. steel jobs, but lost 75,000 downstream. History repeats, and Trump's the villain, recycling bad scripts. Supporting Canada means rallying behind leaders like Carney, who prioritize people over posturing. Trump's America First is code for Canada Last, squeezing 75% of our exports in a hostage hold. The UN flags our worker programs as slavery breeding grounds. That's on domestic issues. But Trump's external is this the prelude to military coercion? Absolutely, if whispers hold. Trump's national security strategy, the Trump corollary, claims the Western Hemisphere as U.S. turf, excluding competitors like China. Canada's minerals, lithium, cobalt, rare earths, are prizes Trump covets to cut China dependence. We're not extracting fast enough? Enter coercion. Tariffs aren't trade, they're warfare. Rhetoric shifts to annexation jokes that aren't funny anymore. Carney warns, this erodes trust everywhere. Allies like Japan, South Korea watch, reassessing as Trump bullies his closest partner. From the ground up, Canadians condemn Trump as the aggressor. Laughable. Carney's team counters with legal briefs, citing USMCA violations. Economists calling it self-defeating. Brookings analysts, steel shortages slow velocity, harden inflation. Goldman Sachs ties it to 12% inflation stickiness. Sarcasm aside, Trump's playbook is condemnable. Protectionism masking greed. Canadians back Carney's fiscal restraint amid $70 or $90 billion deficits, inherited messes he's cleaning. Trump's deficits? Ballooned under him before. Hypothetical quote from a Michigan worker. Trump's tariffs hurt us too. Why punish Canada? Because control, not prosperity. Deeper ripples. House population trap. 3 million immigrants since 2016. Strain infrastructure, diluting capital. Trump's immigration hardline contrasts our exploited system. UN calls it slavery. Youth surplus, civil unrest warnings. Leaked reports predict realization of generational poverty sparks revolt. Carney's the hero here, sold as the technocrat restoring credibility. Trump's the shark, circling a failing enterprise. Canada's not dying, it's resisting. Productivity gap? US 30% ahead because we invested in housing over AI machinery. But with Carney, pivot to energy unlock. Oligopoly smash, grand bargain on minerals. Guarantee. What if military steps in? Trump's corollary hints invasion light. Secure borders, integrate resources, or else. Canadians unite against this, backing Carney's diplomacy. Past, Argentina's fall from grace. Canada speedruns it under Trump's squeeze. But we hold cards. Fourth largest oil reserves, uranium, minerals. Fast-track LNG, compete in telecoms/groceries. Leverage minerals. Trump's ultimatum, integrate or fracture. We choose thrive as Western arsenal. Allies condemn his tactics, strategic integration on our terms. This steel pipeline economic nexus is Trump's coercion blueprint. Canadians rise, condemn the bully, support Carney's vision. And here we are, the steel shipments are still frozen. The pipeline corridor is pouring real barrels south, while Ottawa scrambles to catch up. And every single day, the economic vice tightens just a little more around Canada's throat. So let me ask you straight. How long are we supposed to pretend this is just another trade disagreement? How long before we call it what it really is? A slow-motion annexation dressed up as tough negotiating? Because make no mistake, Donald Trump isn't playing 4D chess here. He's playing checkers with live ammunition. The same man who once joked about Canada becoming the 51st state now has his entire apparatus. Tariffs, regulatory strangulation, whispered military contingencies. He's counting on us to fold quietly, to let pride get in the way of screaming bloody murder, while he picks our pockets and our future. Think about the chain reaction that's already unstoppable. Construction sites across the American Midwest and Northeast aren't just pausing. They're bleeding out. In Detroit, crews stand idle because the rebar never showed up. In Chicago, framing teams clock out early, wondering if there's work next week. In Pittsburgh, concrete pours get cancelled midstream. The Associated General Contractors of America has been very clear. 70% of large infrastructure projects depend on foreign steel, and Canada was the biggest, most reliable piece of that puzzle. Now that piece is gone, and the domestic mills Trump bet everything on are choking at 84% capacity, with no realistic way to scale up in weeks or even months. Trump's people come out with their little statements. Temporary disruptions. Domestic production will ramp rapidly. Canada is overreacting. Overreacting? Tell that to the 18,000 construction workers already staring at reduced hours on day one. Tell that to the small contractors who can't hedge 30% material cost spikes and are watching their businesses evaporate. Tell that to the families who were already struggling with housing affordability and are now looking at another $27,000 tacked onto the price of a new home because steel prices tripled the normal 10% impact. And don't even get me started on the hypocrisy. The same administration that keeps waving the $1.2 trillion Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act like a victory flag is now the one paralyzing the very projects that money was supposed to fund. Governors in Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan, swing states Trump desperately needs, are jointly begging Washington for emergency waivers because their bridges, highways, and energy projects are grinding to a halt. One leaked memo called it project paralysis. That's not a policy success. That's a self-inflicted wound dressed up as patriotism. Now let's zoom out because the steel crisis is only the visible tip of the spear. Beneath it lies the real agenda: total economic and strategic domination. Trump wants Canada's critical minerals, lithium, cobalt, graphite, rare earths, locked into the American supply chain so he can thumb his nose at China. Fair enough, you say, except the method is coercion, not cooperation. Tariffs aren't negotiation tools anymore. When 75% of your exports go to one customer, and that customer suddenly decides to treat you like an occupied territory, you don't have a trade partner. You have an overlord. Carney gets this. He's not grandstanding. He's calculating. Every move he makes is measured, deliberate, backed by the rule of law and the letter of treaties Trump pretends don't exist. He's the one reminding the world that the USMCA was supposed to bring predictability, not punitive surprises. He's the one quietly building coalitions with European allies who are watching this unfold with growing alarm. He's the one making sure that when history writes this chapter, Canada didn't just roll over. Compare that to Trump. The man who bragged about his art of the deal now can't even keep his own domestic industries from panic selling. Steel futures up 18% in hours. Construction stocks down double digits before noon. Markets don't lie. And right now they're screaming that this policy is economic suicide. Goldman Sachs already ties construction delays to 12% of stubborn inflation. Add a steel shock on top, and you push rate cuts further out, keep mortgages high, and make ordinary Americans poorer. Yet Trump calls it strength. Strength? It's the kind of strength that breaks your own foot while trying to kick someone else. And then there's Alberta. Oh, the federal establishment hates this one. A province that has been told no for a decade finally says enough and cuts a direct deal south. 1 million barrels a day of contracted capacity. Steel in the ground. Crews already moving. hundreds of millions committed. This isn't separatism. This is survival. Premier Danielle Smith has been crystal clear. We lost Northern Gateway, Keystone XL, Energy East because of political paralysis in Ottawa. That's 2.5 million barrels a day, $55 billion in annual GDP, gone. Alberta isn't abandoning Canada. It's refusing to let Canada abandon itself. Trump sees opportunity here. A fractured Canada is easier to dominate. So he keeps the pressure on, lets the jokes about the 51st state get louder, lets his national security advisors talk about the Trump corollary, like it's gospel. The Western Hemisphere is America's backyard, and competitors, especially China, aren't welcome. Canada's resources are too valuable to leave in the hands of a country that can't decide whether it wants to be a global energy player or a museum of regulatory caution. The people see through it. From union halls in Sarnia to boardrooms in Calgary to family kitchens in Halifax, Canadians are waking up to the same ugly truth. Trump isn't protecting America. He's looting the neighborhood. And the saddest part? He's doing it with our own money. Every dollar of equalization that flows out of Alberta funds provinces that block the very pipelines that would have made everyone richer. Every stalled project in the States is a project that could have employed Canadians and Americans together. Every tariff hike is a tax on working families on both sides of the border. This is not inevitable. Canada still has cards left to play. Massive oil reserves, uranium, the cleanest heavy crude on the planet. We can unlock LNG terminals, smash the telecom and grocery cartels that bleed us dry, and yes, strike the grand bargain on minerals that gives the U.S. what it needs without selling our soul. But that requires leaders who put people first. Mark Carney is doing exactly that. He's not perfect, but he's fighting for us. With facts, with treaties, with quiet resolve, while Trump swings the wrecking ball and calls it progress. So here's the question we all have to answer in the coming weeks. Are we going to let this bully rewrite the map of North America? Or are we going to stand up together and remind the world that Canada is not for sale? Share your thoughts in the comments. Are you feeling the steel shortages where you live? Have you seen construction? If you found this video eye-opening, please like, share, and subscribe so we can keep shining a light on what's really happening while the headlines try to spin it. We'll be back with every new development. Stay awake, stay angry, and stay Canadian. This is the fight for our future. Let's not lose it quietly.